On today's show, we are talking all about Avengers Infinity War. Yesterday, the Russo Brothers gave a letter to all the Marvel fans out there, begging them not to spoil the film. We're going to talk about whether or not that was a good idea, whether or not it will work. We're also going to talk about some DC Films news. Apparently, the Flashpoint movie is actually changing its name. It will no longer be Flashpoint. What does this mean? I mean, is this the latest in the Rocky story that is the DC Films? We're going to break it all down. This is the Nerdy News Rundown, your daily dose for nerdy news. I'm your host, Josh, and we are broadcasting out of Uncanny in the King of Prussia Mall, Philadelphia. Let's get this show started. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the show. It's New Comic Book Day, and we're definitely going to be talking about all the cool comics that come out in the dope list later on in the show. I want to, of course, shout out Uncanny for sponsoring the show, and if you're in the Philadelphia area, consider going into an Uncanny store today and picking up a few comic books. There's quite a bit of goodness on the shelves today. All right, let's get into today's first topic. This has to do with Avengers Infinity War. Now, this film, this little art house movie production that you may have heard of, known as Infinity War. This movie is starting its press tour very, very soon. And yesterday, the Russo Brothers gave a letter to the internet and to Marvel fans. In this letter, it talks about how select sequences of the film are going to be shown to audiences in the weeks coming and leading up to Infinity War. It talks about how very few people actually know the true plot of the film. And then it goes on to beg Marvel fans to not spoil anything about the movie once they've seen it for at least a couple of months, so that all the Marvel fans around the world can go out there and enjoy the movie without having it spoiled. It's a pretty cool idea, and a lot of the cast for Infinity War got online yesterday and sort of reacted to this. You had Tom Holland saying that originally this letter was addressed to him, which is hilarious because if you didn't know, Tom Holland has a major problem with spoiling things from the Marvel movies. Mark Ruffalo also has this problem, and it was really cool to see the cast sort of going back and forth on Twitter reacting to this news. The internet also reacted, and as you can imagine, there was a mix of, totally reasonable stuff that was sort of suffocated by massive amounts of people reacting in completely absurd ways. There were a lot of people saying that this was trolling, that this was going to trigger more trolls to sort of spoil the movie for people online. Some people saying challenge accepted, that they're going to go out there and try extra hard to spoil the movie now. In general, I think that it's a good idea. The jury's probably still out on whether or not it's a good tactic, but I at least respect the effort. I mean, the Russo brothers have done a lot to try to prevent spoilers out there. This is just the latest thing that they have done. I mean, they're moving the release date back, getting it as close to a worldwide release as possible. Now, my thoughts on spoilers in general are sort of mixed. I sort of fall in the middle. I mean, basically because of what I do here, I do tend to go out there, research these movies, research these shows and different things, and try to glean information and speculate on things that I think will be in the final product. For me, speculation is sort of a fun thing to do in fandom, but I definitely draw the line when it comes to a hard spoiler. I mean, if you've actually seen the thing or actually read the script and you know how a certain twist will play out in the movie, I do think it's kind of messed up for you to take that information and then blast it all over the internet. That being said, I do think some of this responsibility sort of falls on the user. I mean, if you haven't seen Infinity War, you might want to stay off social media, maybe stay off the internet for a couple of days or a couple of weeks until you go check the film out. That's just sort of my thoughts. I mean, especially if you're out there like Googling Avengers Infinity War or watching YouTube videos about Avengers Infinity War, the chances of you having something spoiled, especially if you know the people have seen the movie, it goes up. It's pretty high. So you got to take some responsibility for, your own actions online as well. Now, as far as what we're going to do on this channel specifically, I'm going to do everything in my power to prevent spoilers from coming to people who have not seen the movie from our content. I mean, I'm going to try to stay away from stuff, be a little cryptic, not use images that give stuff away in thumbnails. But once again, a lot of this responsibility does fall on you guys. I'm going to let you know spoilers. I'm going to say spoilers in the thumbnail. I'm going to say spoilers in the title. I'm going to say spoilers during the video. So if you haven't seen it and I give you that warning, you've got to check off the video. I mean, that's just kind of how this stuff works. As far as the effort itself from the Russo brothers, I mean, I totally respect, them trying to do this. I don't know how effective it's actually going to be. We live in this internet culture where some people literally take things like this and try to ruin it more on purpose. They feel sort of challenged by this. And I mean, come on, let's be honest. The internet is kind of a terrible place these days. So I don't know if it's going to be effective or not. I respect them trying to do this. So there's that. I also thought it very cool. Like in the letter, they say very few people actually know the true plot of the film. I'm hoping that given all the promotional material, everything we've seen leading up to the movie, that it's only giving us slight tidbits here and there. I mean, in my mind, I can already draw a lot of conclusions about what will happen in the film. And if there are big surprises, I'm pumped for that. I definitely want to be surprised. Don't give those surprises away if you're one of those people that figures it out online. So that is the story. That is what happened yesterday. We're getting closer and closer to Infinity War. The anticipation is real. And the Russo brothers are doing everything they can to prevent spoilers. So what do you think about this? What do you think about the letter itself? Did you read it? Do you think it's going to work? Do you think it'll have the opposite effect and just make people want to troll even harder? I'm very interested to hear what everybody thinks about this in the comment section below. All right, let's get into our next topic. This all has to do with that fun thing called the DC Extended Universe. In the latest bit of absolutely positive news that is not confusing in any way, the Flashpoint movie is apparently having its name changed. It will no longer be known as Flashpoint. This is honestly just the latest of like bad, kind of crazy, confusing stuff to come out of Warner Brothers when it comes to their DC films, so I'm really not surprised at all. But this is something we got to talk about. Now, this news comes from an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, and the author of the article is talking about Dan Mazu, who is a scribe working on a new project that had worked on the Flashpoint movie. And in the article, he says that the guy worked on the movie when it was titled Flashpoint. This implies that the title has changed. A lot of people online picked up on that, sort of hit this guy up. They were really confused. He defended himself on Twitter, kind of saying, well, look, I'm not saying they're not adapting the Flashpoint story still, but it's not going to be called Flashpoint. But maybe I've said too much. A lot of people agree with that. You said too much. You have allowed us to know that, yeah, they're moving ahead with the plot being adapted. They're going to change the title. And honestly, at this point, like almost anything we hear when it comes out of DC films, unless it's reboot or not a reboot or something definitive, just it gives us trepidation. It gives us confusion. So as far as like what this news actually means, I'm not quite sure. I mean, honestly, I never thought Flashpoint was a good title anyways. It's kind of confusing to mass audiences. It gives all of the hardcore fans sort of expectations of them adapting that Jeff Johns story. A lot of people thought this could be the perfect way for them to do a soft reboot on their universe, keeping things that they like and allowing other things like Batfleck to sort of fall away and change in like a diegetic story type way. In the end, we're left with only more questions about this. There's a lot of turmoil behind the scenes at Warner Brothers DC. We're only getting Aquaman this year, and we still don't have any promotional stuff for that. So I think a lot of the reason this story was picked up on is just because, look, there's a lot of hungry fans out there that want to know what is going on with the DC films. Matt Reeves spoke very briefly on Twitter about his Batman movie, saying that it is indeed moving ahead. We're hearing mixed things about this Joaquin Phoenix Joker character. The Shazam movie tends to be, in the news, whether they're trolling fans or fans are furious about costumes or something like that. So there's just a lot of messy stuff when it comes to the DC films. And I don't know, this news definitely doesn't help. My own personal thoughts about this is that they're actually working on a lot of big announcements that I'm hoping will be released later in the year during main Comic-Con season. So like San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, something like that. I think we'll get an announcement about the future of DC films, what exactly is going on, how they're going to move forward. So I'm sort of holding out hope for that specifically. But as far as my hope for the Flashpoint movie rebooting this thing, I really don't think that that's going to happen. I think them changing the name and maybe only bringing certain elements of that story into play is probably a smart idea anyways. I mean, you're just introducing this universe. Now you're going to reboot it. I mean, we barely know the Barry Allen from Justice League, so maybe we should just hang out with him a little bit more and kind of get to know his world. With all of that being said, that's the news. That's what's out there. I want to know what everybody thinks about this. I mean, what are your thoughts about DC films in general? Do you think they should keep the Flashpoint title? Do you want them to soft reboot? Do you want them to hard reboot? Or do you want them to just leave it alone and do new movies? I mean, right now we're kind of getting this vibe that things like Shazam might exist outside of the DCEU continuity. Matt Reeves' Batman might be a whole new standalone kind of thing. So all we've got is sort of rumor, speculation, and weird news stories like this one. So I want to know what everybody thinks about that in the comment section below. All right, everybody, it's time for the Dope List Rapid Fire, where I just kind of talk about all the dope things that you might have missed. It's New Comic Book Day, so we're going to do the comic book edition of the Dope List, and I'm just going to take you through some books I'm excited to check out today. Number one on the list is Avengers Shards of Infinity. This is sort of a lead-in to a big event that Marvel's been talking about for a long time. This all has to do with the Infinity Stones, reshaping reality, sort of a new reboot for their universe. Considering that it's a number one, it's a good creative team, and it's a team of heroes I like that hang out together, I'm pretty interested in it. It appears to deal with something going on with the moon. You have Natasha Romanoff doing some espionage stuff. So it all seems very, very cool to me. Plus, I'm really interested in like what is going on with Captain America post Secret Empire. So looking forward to checking this out. Next book up for me is Deathstroke vs. Batman #1. This is going to be a mini series, and to be quite frank, I mean, it just seems totally legit. Deathstroke vs. Batman, sign me up. This is the kind of bombastic stuff that I love when it comes to my comics. I'm a big fan of both of these characters, so this is just like a fun pick for me. I'm just excited to see a good comic book story about two awesome characters fighting each other. Not much more to it. I'll let you guys know if there's any like crazy twists or anything, but I'm not really expecting anything other than some batarangs banging off of some swords, some bullets flying around, just good old-fashioned comic book fun. Next on my list is Venomized #1. Marvel's been pushing a lot of Venom stuff recently. You had the Venomverse, Edge of the Venomverse, all sorts of crazy stuff like this. I like the idea of Colin Bunn writing Venom. This seems very ridiculous as I was looking through it. Tons of crazy bombastic stuff going on in there, and just because I've been feeling lately, especially with all the Venom movie news, that I need to scratch my Venom itch, this book was an obvious choice for me. New #1, excited to check it out and read the ongoing story. Now, #1 on my pull list today is a book I've talked at great length about during this show, and this is Batman White Knight, done by Sean Murphy. This is an incredible story. We're on #7. It's got the Joker on the cover. Is he finally making a return in this book as a true villain? I don't know, but I'm pretty excited to find out. This book is absolutely fantastic. One of the best comics that's out there right now. Highly recommend you go check it out. And I'm sure that your local store has back issues. I know that Uncanny does, so go check that stuff out. So that is the Dope List, the new Comic Book Day edition. Let me know about those picks. Are you reading any of those books? Are you excited to check them out? And if there's a really cool comic book that you're reading that was not on that list, hit me up, because I'm always looking for good comics to read. All right, finally, let's go over a fan question before we get out of here. This is a question from Vance Wallace, who is, by the way, an awesome subscriber, always very active in the comments section. Vance had asked me a question about Silver Surfer way back when, so I want to quickly say something about that. I think your question, Vance, was about whether or not what happened to Thanos' planet could have been Galactus and Silver Surfer related. This, of course, has to do with the rumor that Silver Surfer will be in Infinity War. I mean, here's my honest opinion on that, man. I really don't think that's possible, because if Galactus had, like, eaten Titan, then it wouldn't exist at all anymore. We know that part of the film is going to exist on Titan, and that fight in space with Star-Lord and Doc Strange and Iron Man and Thanos, that is on Titan. So I think that's where it all is going to be going down. So I don't think it's possible that Thanos ate that moon or that planet, because then it wouldn't be there. You also asked a question about awesome MCU characters from the past that could be brought back. You mentioned Sam Rockwell, and I couldn't agree more. Sam Rockwell was amazing. Hammer Industries is so cool, so I would love to see him come back into the fold. I'd love to see the Red Skull come back into the fold. And honestly, there is a possibility here, depending on what happens with the gems, that a lot of these old villains are sort of resurrected or brought back. We know technically the Red Skull was teleported somewhere out in space, so it's always possible that he comes back into the fold eventually. Whether or not it'll be the same actor, I don't know. Hugo Weaving apparently has a problem playing this character, but it's been several years since he did, so maybe he'd be into coming back at this point. I don't know. Either way, there's a ton of really cool old MCU characters that we could bring back. Sam Rockwell is probably number one on my list, but I also would really like to see General Ross actually become the Red Hulk. I mean, despite the MCU having gone on for over 10 years and done a lot of crazy comic book stuff, there's a whole litany of stuff that they still haven't done that could be very, very cool. This includes, of course, Miles Morales' Spider-Man that was teased in Homecoming, the Red Hulk, as I've said, and Moon Knight, who was actually teased in the Winter Soldier film. So there's a ton of cool MCU stuff that they can still do, including bringing back some of these old characters. So thank you very much, Vance Wallace, for the question, and thanks for being so awesome. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's show. Please, if you have questions you want me to cover on a future episode, drop them in the comment section below. I want to talk about what you guys want to talk about on the show. So let me know what we're doing, and I'll put it into a future episode. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day, and I will see you in the next video. Guys, I'm trapped in this square again, because you need to click the links. Yeah, I know, you probably knew that already, but like, why don't you click those links? They will take you to more cool videos. So, you know, maybe you want to watch a cool video, so give it a click.